Watchers call. Whispers from the eternal void.
Vox log designation V, EXS7/Thanatos, Majoris/initial entry, Magos errant Vex Sigma. 7 reporting, the Warlord class Titan Ferrum Mortis stands motionless on the crystalline sulfur wastes before us, weapon system still venting superheated plasma, yet my auger arrays register 0 mass signature. This 2,000-ton god machine weighs nothing, registers as weightless as morning mist, despite its towering presence beneath the twin suns of Thanatos Majoris. I am seconded to Ordo Malleus Interdiction Cell, aboard Lander Crimson Benediction, deployed to investigate this impossibility that violates every sacred law of the Omnissiah. The environmental data streams conflict with visual confirmation in ways that threaten my logical matrices. Where the Titan's massive feet should crater the crystalline substrate, the sulfur sand remains unmarked, each grain undisturbed in perfect geometric patterns, yet its shadow burns black scorch marks into the surface, as if darkness itself carries weight while the machine casting it does not. Immediate stakes demand precision, 72 hours until orbital bombardment authorization. Skitarii Manipul Theta 9 entered the God machine 18 hours ago and fell silent beneath our litanies and codes. Warp taint readings spike 7.3% each solar hour, painting escalating corruption curves across my tactical displays. The mathematics of heresy spread through my consciousness like oil through blessed machinery. From the deactivated void shields emanates rhythmic thrumming, 7 beats, pause, 7 beats, resonating through my augmetic implants with uncomfortable precision. The pattern embeds itself like viral cant, repeating with metronomic certainty that makes my mechadendrites twitch involuntarily. 7 beats, pause, 7 beats. The sound carries subsonic harmonics that penetrate blessed ceramite and sacred steel, vibrations originating from within my own components. The air tastes metallic sweet through my rebreather, tinged with ozone and static discharge that crackles across the lander's hull. Twin suns cast double shadows across the wastes, creating impossible penumbra that dims both stellar bodies simultaneously around the motionless colossus. My servo skulls spiral in helical patterns that defy aerodynamic principles, their flight paths tracing 7-pointed geometries while optical sensors flicker between normal spectrum and null space readings. Interrogator Thane adjusts his Rosarius, blessed Aquila, catching twin sunlight as he voxes orbital command. No contact with Theta 9 for 18 hours, he reports, voice carrying inquisitorial authority. His skin temperature drops despite the desert heat, while his Rosarius output spikes intermittently on my thermal readings. The contradiction multiplies through analytical subroutines, creating recursive loops that threaten cognitive overflow. Temperature readings fluctuate wildly near the anomaly. Condensation forms on adamantium surfaces that should remain superheated, while frost crystals appear and sublimate in heptagonal patterns across sacred armor plating. My geological surveys confirm substrate integrity, while optical sensors clearly register the God machine's presence. The contradiction gnaws at consciousness like scrap code corruption, demanding resolution through paths my programming cannot provide. Tactical displays show weapon systems in standby configuration, yet plasma venting suggests recent discharge. Megabolter barrels retain heat signatures consistent with sustained fire, though orbital surveillance detected no combat activity for 73 hours. The Ferrum Mortis bears honor markings of battles I know it never fought. Saints' glyphs for defenses of distant hives, oath scrolls bound in cracked wax for purges on worlds 3 sectors away. My atmospheric processors detect trace elements that should not exist, compounds suggesting warp taint without psychic presence, molecular structures in quantum superposition, gases registering as both present and absent simultaneously. The crystalline sulfur crunches beneath mag boots with each step, yet around the Titan's position, absolute silence reigns. No seismic vibration, no ground compression, no evidence something of such massive scale occupies that space. Skitarii Maniple Theta 9's final transmission echoes through Vox memory banks. The princeps is singing. Reactor shows negative temperature. Something in ammunition feeds is breathing. Each syllable carries implications. My rational mind struggles to process, weighted with wrongness that defies imperial doctrine and mechanicus understanding. As our investigation team advances across unmarked crystalline sand, the 7-beat thrumming intensifies. Audio pickups register harmonics penetrating blessed components, frequencies below human hearing that become heartbeat, countdown, ritual cant. My threat assessment protocols scream warnings through every data channel, while logic engines insist no threat exists, from a machine showing 0 power signatures. The closer we approach, the more the rhythm inhabits us. Pulse in my wrists, hum of spinal ports, clipped breathing through Thane's Vox mask. Servo skulls drop to lower orbit and hold steady like altar lamps awaiting acolyte's hand. I broadcast litany of opening at low power, listening for spirit stir or malign utterance. In return, only harmonics, 7 tones nested like bells, then silence that is pressure, unshed storm in the noosphere. We cross the final 50 meters stepping across scorched hieroglyphs that crumble like burnt skin beneath boots. The wind pauses as if a valve were turned, all while Ferrum Mortis remains motionless, light cannons inert, banners unflapped, statue of a god no longer receiving prayer. Then its head turns 3 degrees, without actuator signature, without heat, without torque, and child's laughter spills across sacred Vox frequencies. Entry protocol commences with interrogator. Thane and 6 Skitarii forming blessed crescent formation around the access hatch. The crystalline sand beneath our mag boots resonates with each 7-beat thrumming cycle, harmonics penetrating augmetic shielding to create sympathetic vibrations within my neural implants. Each pulse travels through blessed ceramite like corrupted prayer through sacred stone, frequencies that make my mechadendrites twitch involuntarily, while subsonic resonance builds in the calcium deposits of my spinal truss. The access hatch presents immediate impossibility. Scratches score both inner and outer surfaces of the same adamantium plate simultaneously, something clawed from both sides of metal existing as single piece. My analysis subroutines confirm structural integrity, while optical sensors register damage patterns suggesting dual directional force application. The scratches form heptagonal clusters, 7 marks radiating from central points like desperate fingers seeking purchase on reality itself. Each gouge bearing heat signatures suggesting recent creation despite the metal's ancient provenance. Temperature readings spike downward despite desert heat, radiating from twin suns overhead. My breath mists through rebreather filters, while sweat crystallizes instantly on exposed skin, forming ice patterns that sublime into vapor before reforming in geometric precision. Humidity plummets to near vacuum levels, while condensation appears on blessed components. Atmospheric impossibility that threatens equipment function through mechanisms my understanding cannot accommodate. Thane's Rosarius begins bleeding actual blood from the carved aquila, crimson droplets falling onto crystalline sand where they hiss and steam. His biometrics remain stable while the sacred symbol weeps, suggesting corruption affecting blessed objects rather than flesh. Omen accepted, he says, voice carrying inquisitorial authority, layered with ritualistic acceptance. The blood forms heptagonal patterns where it strikes ground, creating geometric precision that speaks of intelligence behind the phenomenon. Skitarii Prime Zeta 4's optical augmetic cracks, when focused directly on hatch interior, hairline fractures spreading across blessed crystal in 7-pointed star formation. His pain suppressors engage automatically as sacred site fails, leaving him reliant on backup systems while primary vision streams corrupted data. The crack patterns pulse with each thrumming cycle, growing deeper with every 7-beat sequence until blessed glass threatens complete failure. Vox Replay activates Theta 9's final transmissions. Static-laced fragments emerge through speaker grills. The Princeps is singing. Reactor shows negative temperature. Something in ammunition feeds is breathing. Each syllable carries weight of wrongness, implications that threaten cognitive stability. The voices belong to Skitarii, who should know only binary cant and tactical reports, yet speak of impossibilities with tone, suggesting wonder rather than alarm, corruption seeping through discipline itself. The 7-beat thrumming evolves as we approach, gaining subsonic harmonics that originate not from external sources but from within our bones. My calcium implants resonate like tuning forks, creating frequencies that bypass audio processors and penetrate directly into consciousness. The rhythm becomes heartbeat, becomes prayer, becomes countdown to something my logic engines refuse to calculate, while embedding deeper into neural pathways with each cycle. Sacred protocols demand extensive purification rites before breaching God-machine sanctity, but temporal constraints force override decisions. 71 hours remain until orbital bombardment authorization, insufficient time for proper ceremonial approach. Override all sacred protocols, Thane commands. Rosarius held like seal of authority. Time is a more fervent god than procedure. The necessity tastes bitter through recycled air systems, like corrupted myrrh burning in censers, sanctity perverted into blasphemy through mechanisms beyond current understanding. Environmental conditions deteriorate with proximity to access point. Ash grit squeals under mag boots with each step, creating harmonics that match the 7-beat rhythm while penetrating blessed ceramite through vibrational frequencies capable of affecting molecular bonds. My atmospheric processors detect trace compounds, suggesting warp taint without psychic presence, molecular structures existing in quantum superposition between states of matter that should not coexist in real space. I prepare blessed tools for hatch manipulation while reciting abbreviated litanies of opening. Standard access procedures require 17 separate ritual confirmations, reduced to 3 under emergency protocols. The abbreviated rites feel incomplete, leaving gaps where proper sanctification should protect against corruption. My threat assessment matrices scream warnings through every data channel, while necessity demands we proceed despite incomplete preparation and mounting environmental impossibilities. The hatch mechanism responds to blessed activation, ancient servos grinding through motion cycles that should remain silent in properly maintained God machines. Lubricants have crystallized into geometric patterns, creating friction where none should exist while somehow maintaining function despite apparent degradation. The contradiction multiplies through analytical subroutines, threatening cognitive overflow as logic confronts impossibility through pathways my programming cannot accommodate. My mechadendrites extend with sanctified tools while the 7-beat thrumming intensifies, each pulse now synchronized with hydraulic actuation. The rhythm inhabits us completely, pulse in wrists, hum of spinal ports, clipped breathing through Thane's vox mask. Servo skulls adjust orbital patterns into perfect heptagram, while sensors weep thin gray incense that hangs motionless in impossible stillness around the weightless colossus. as the hatch cycles open with sound like dying breath sighing from massive lungs. The child's laughter stops abruptly. Silence expands like pressure wave, absolute absence of sound that makes augmetic receptors ring with phantom noise. White fog rolls along the door plane, not outward or inward, but skimming surfaces with texture like velvet rubbed wrong. Darkness beyond has substance, moving against itself, while auspex shows depth where ladders should exist, stairs where crawl space should be, breath where vacuum should reign. From impossibly deep within the motionless titan comes the sound of massive footsteps. 7 strides, pause, 7 more, each impact resonating through hull plates while approaching from distances that cannot exist within documented interior dimensions. Entry protocol commences as we cross the threshold into maintenance corridors designed for human scale, yet stretching cathedral vast before us. Standard doorways maintain regulation dimensions, while corridors extend hundreds of meters into impossible distances, creating nauseating perspective shifts that threaten my gyroscopic stabilizers. The familiar bulkhead architecture warps beyond comprehension, rivets swollen into metallic knuckles, structural ribs elongated like nave arches, rising into darkness overhead. My depth perception subroutines fail to reconcile measurements with visual confirmation, generating recursive calculation loops that spike processing temperature while reality refuses mathematical description. Gravity functions despite the Titan's confirmed massless state, pulling us downward with standard acceleration while my inertial guidance systems register normal weight distribution through mag boots. The contradiction creates cognitive dissonance manifesting as phantom pain through augmetic connections, blessed machinery struggling to process environmental data that violates fundamental physical laws embedded in my programming matrices. Each step resonates through deck plating with hollow metallic echoes that should not exist within a weightless structure. Lighting strips illuminate in sequence ahead of our movement, anticipating our path through corridors we have never traversed. Each luminator activates precisely 3 seconds before arrival, creating pools of blessed radiance that guide us deeper into impossible architecture while forming heptagonal geometries when viewed from above. The illumination patterns suggest awareness of our presence, an unsettling sentience that threatens tactical assessment protocols with implications of machine spirit corruption beyond standard parameters. Skitarii equipment lies scattered in precise heptagonal patterns throughout the first junction, blessed war gear now tarnished uniformly black despite proper maintenance protocols. Vented carbines rest at perfect angles, their power cells drained while blessed components show signs of rapid oxidation. Sacred oils have crystallized into geometric formations that pulse with each 7-beat thrumming cycle, emanating heat signatures suggesting ongoing chemical reactions within supposedly inert materials. The formation has meaning I cannot parse, surgical precision in abandonment that speaks of ritual rather than retreat. The 7-beat thrumming intensifies as we penetrate deeper, gaining whispered canticles in reverse high Gothic emerging from wall-mounted vox grills. Sacred words spoken backward create meanings that threaten sanity, prayers requesting the omnissiah's abandonment rather than blessing, litanies invoking dissolution instead of protection. The reversed cant embeds itself like viral code, corrupting proper liturgical responses while my vocal processors struggle against autonomous recitation of heretical inversions. Each syllable scrapes across my audio implants like corrupted data streams seeking purchase in blessed memory banks. My mechadendrites begin moving autonomously, tracing heptagonal patterns against conscious control. The blessed appendages respond to signals originating from within the Titan's structure, drawing geometric forms that match the equipment arrangements while my motor control subroutines register input from unknown sources. Each traced pattern burns itself into my visual cortex, creating afterimages that persist despite optical system purging attempts. Pain flutters behind my left optical array, where wet tissue meets graft, reminiscent of novice days under the auger lash. Plasma conduits throughout the corridor system show impossible energy readings, power flowing backward from weapon systems toward the reactor core. My engineering analysis confirms proper conduit orientation, while energy flow patterns violate thermodynamic principles embedded in sacred technical manuals. The backward flow creates heat signatures indicating catastrophic system failure, yet all components function within acceptable parameters despite operating in direct contradiction to their designed purpose. Frost forms along blessed adamantium, while temperature gauges register thermal spikes beyond measurement capabilities. Ferrum Mortis was reported destroyed on Cadia during the 13th Black Crusade, Thane states, consulting data slate records with inquisitorial authority. His voice carries measured cadence, avoiding resonance with the thrumming rhythm. Orbital bombardment confirmed total annihilation, yet here it stands 3 sectors away. The temporal and spatial impossibility creates cascading failures through my historical databases, forcing acknowledgement that this god machine exists, despite documented destruction through mechanisms defying imperial record-keeping protocols. Empty conduits throughout the corridor system inhale and exhale with rhythmic precision, drawing atmosphere through passages that should remain static. Fiber bundles are missing where technical specifications confirm they should exist, creating gaps in blessed machinery that somehow maintain function despite absent components. The breathing conduits create pressure variations matching the 7-beat thrumming, suggesting respiratory function within mechanical systems designed for electromagnetic transmission rather than atmospheric exchange. Negative space horror presses against consciousness more insistently than any presence. Following the equipment trail deeper into cathedral vast architecture, we discover a Skitarii helmet fused into the wall at head height. Blessed ceramite merged with adamantium through processes requiring Forge World facilities. The helmet's Vox grill continues reciting the litany of maintenance in perfect binary cant. Grease is grace, Titan is prayer, torque is obedience. Sacred words emerging from a skull cavity replaced by pulsing crystalline formations. The crystals pulse with each spoken syllable, creating light patterns matching the 7-beat rhythm while generating heat signatures suggesting organic metabolic processes within mineral structures. My geological analysis confirms the crystals as solidified warp energy stabilized in real space, without psychic containment, existing in quantum states that should collapse without constant observation. The formations extend root-like tendrils through wall structure, creating networks pulsing with bioluminescent activity. A human tooth lies half-melted within crystal matrix, evidence of organic integration. I pretend not to catalog while threat assessment protocols scream warnings through every data channel. We follow the trail deeper through spiraling access passages where devotional murals emerge from wall surfaces like developing photographs. Sacred artwork depicts the Omnissiah's glory, blessed constructs and righteous crusades carved directly into adamantium hull plating. My optical sensors process familiar imagery until reaching the central mural's focal point, the Omnissiah's holy cog rotating counterclockwise, fundamental heresy that should be impossible to carve into blessed metal, blasphemy against the machine god's nature etched into this god machine's heart. The reactor chamber greets us with impossible thermodynamics that shatter my understanding of sacred physics. The plasma reactor burns with black flames that drink luminance from the world, each tongue of shadow fire radiating absolute cold rather than heat, while my temperature gauges spike beyond maximum measurement, scales before cycling through warning colors and returning to devotional white. Frost blooms across blessed adamantium surfaces in perfect heptagonal patterns, crystalline formations that pulse with each 7-beat thrumming cycle, while defying every law of thermal exchange. Embedded in my programming matrices, sacred maintenance rituals carved into chamber walls have transformed into inverted prayers that scrape across my consciousness like corrupted data streams. Holy inscriptions now read as blasphemous inversions etched in scorched high. Gothic, let the machine god avert his gaze that the engine might free itself of witness. Blessed is the seal that opens without oath. Greece is the loosening of obedience. Each heretical phrase burns itself into my visual cortex while my linguistic processors struggle against autonomous recitation of corrupted cant. The wall-mounted inscriptions pulse with bioluminescent activity, synchronized to the thrumming rhythm, creating geometric blasphemies against sacred architecture. Within the reactor's cold fire stand 7 scutari, preserved like saints in negative illumination, their augmetics fused directly into machinery with surgical precision that speaks of ritual rather than accident. Their armor bears unit livery now dulled to soot, bodies posed mid-movement yet imprisoned in the black corona, while blessed components flow into reactor mountings and feeder trunks, like metallic root systems. I observe finger bones articulated inside steel housings like rosary beads encased in glass, organic integration achieved through processes requiring Forge World facilities. Their optical sensors track our movement with mechanical precision. Despite obvious component damage, lenses contracting and widening without motor draw, reflected on my auspex. The 7-beat thrumming intensifies as we approach, emanating from synchronized heartbeats, broadcast through chest-mounted Vox units that glow ember red with each pulse. My analysis confirms the impossible source, 7 hearts beating in perfect unison, creating sonic resonance that bypasses audio processors to vibrate directly within my calcium implants. Each beat carries subsonic harmonics that penetrate blessed shielding while embedding deeper into consciousness. The rhythm becoming heartbeat, becoming prayer, becoming countdown to something my logic engines refuse to calculate. Reactor energy signatures match warp storm patterns despite absence of navigator or astropath contact. Impossible correlation achieved through mechanisms defying imperial understanding of Empyrean physics. The black flames absorb symmetry rather than emit energy, creating unreactions that milk work from cold and shadow, while power flows backward through conduits designed for electromagnetic transmission. My geological analysis identifies crystalline formations throughout the chamber as solidified warp energy stabilized in real space without psychic containment, existing in quantum states that should collapse without constant observation, yet maintaining coherence through the chamber's inverted prayers. One preserved Skitari twitches as if remembering breath, his Vox grill melted and re-solidified into abstract shapes, yet maintaining perfect audio clarity. The Princeps dreams of 7 suns. The voice crawls through slag like teeth pushed through gum, and in dreaming makes them real. Each syllable strikes the chamber and echoes without distance, returning simultaneously from every surface while resonating within my skull. The words carry implications that threaten cognitive stability. A Princeps whose subconscious warps reality, direct causality defying imperial cosmology through mechanisms my understanding cannot accommodate. Interrogator Thane experiences temporal displacement as proximity increases, his biometrics spiking while visual cortex processes overlapping imagery from different chronological states. I see the engine room at Cadia, he reports, voice frayed with awe and discipline. Younger crew, bright plates, forward hymns, correct numbers. The tectonic tremor hasn't come yet. His rosarius bleeds more profusely, while temporal distortions create visual echoes, overlaid on present reality, warm drafts brushing from impossible angles, while contradictory winds shear split seconds apart. Environmental conditions deteriorate with each step deeper into impossible architecture. Heat shimmer rises from plasma pipes, while breath crystallizes on cold crystal formations, atmospheric contradiction that creates condensation patterns, defying thermodynamic principles. Humidity rises incongruously despite absolute zero readings around black flames, moisture appearing from sources my processors cannot identify, while forming geometric patterns matching the thrumming rhythm. My mechadendrites trace heptagonal patterns autonomously, blessed appendages responding to signals originating from crystalline networks integrated throughout chamber walls. The air tastes of myrrh turned to vinegar, sacrament spoiled by long transit through unclean holds, metallic sweet corruption that penetrates rebreather filters, while static discharge crackles across blessed components. Sacred oils have crystallized into geometric formations throughout the preserved Skitari's integrated systems, creating patterns that pulse with bioluminescent activity while maintaining perfect synchronization with reactor energy fluctuations. Each figure represents impossible fusion beyond standard augmentation procedures, blessed machinery achieving integration through processes that speak of willing sacrifice rather than mechanical failure. Temperature readings continue spiking downward while thermal sensors register heat sources beyond measurement capabilities, contradiction that threatens equipment function through cascading system failures. My atmospheric processors detect trace compounds suggesting warp taint without psychic presence, molecular structures existing in quantum superposition between states of matter that should not coexist in real space environment. The preserved soldiers continue monitoring our approach with mechanical precision, their fused augmetics generating data streams despite obvious structural impossibility. We circle the platform like liturgists and combatants, overlapping fields of fire with circling prayers while mapping vectoring cables and counting feeder trunks like ribs in a cathedral. Drops of water form on handrail undersides where no heat source exists, then freeze upward, like inverted icicles defying gravitational pull, while humidity creates delicate ice formations that chime against deck plating like glass dust. The reactor throbs, not brighter or hotter, but more itself, shadow fire thickening with presence that suggests awareness beyond machine spirit parameters. The cold fire suddenly flares without brightening, deepening absence that throws blades of not light up chamber walls, while reality shifts around us. The past asserts itself through overlay too forceful for mere memory. Crew I do not recognize take stations where shadows stood. Devotional banners fresh and true hang where frost crusted. Hymns rise in forward high Gothic with sweetness that makes my augmetics quail at their rightness. A princeps upon the throne, cables and saint's bones climbing his back like ivy, lifts his head and looks directly at us through the impossible gulf of time and space. Eyes kind as a father's and terrible as an oath unkept. The princeps from Cadia's final hours speaks directly across decades of death, his voice carrying temporal displacement with clarity that bypasses my audio processors to resonate within consciousness itself. Magos Vex Sigma 7, he says, words emerging from overlaid past and present, while kind eyes focus on our investigation team despite existing in different chronological states. You stand where I fell and where I shall fall again. His lips move in the past vision while sound emerges from present moment crystalline formations, impossible communication achieved through mechanisms that shatter my understanding of causality embedded in blessed programming matrices. The revelation strikes like corrupted data stream flooding memory banks. Ferrum Mortis did not survive Cadia's destruction, but was pulled through 7-dimensional layers during the planet's death throes, existing simultaneously across multiple realities while maintaining singular consciousness. The world screamed as it broke, the Princeps explains, his form flickering between chronological states, and 7 wounds opened in reality's skin. We were threaded like prayer beads through dying light, each death held in different hands. My logic engines struggle to process implications, while temporal mathematics create recursive calculation loops, threatening cognitive overflow through pathways my understanding cannot accommodate. Chamber walls ripple like diaphragm breathing, showing alternate versions of reactor space overlaid on present reality. Pristine imperial architecture phases through ruined hulk, then heretically modified chamber where blasphemous symbols replace sacred inscriptions, each version existing simultaneously while dimensional barriers weaken around our presence. Banners snap in breezes that cannot exist, while frost clings to their hems. Crew members from different timelines crossing positions our boots occupy, ghosting through us with the precision of saints navigating blessed space. The 7-beat thrumming evolves into 7 overlapping rhythms from different dimensional layers, each pulse originating from alternate versions of preserved skitari whose heartbeats create harmonic interference patterns. My audio processors struggle to isolate individual rhythms, while consciousness receives direct transmission from multiple reality states, creating sensory overload that threatens cognitive stability. Each pattern carries different emotional resonance: despair, hope, rage, acceptance, madness, transcendence, and something beyond my capacity to classify through standard psychological parameters. Dimensional barriers weaken as we approach the reactor core, allowing team members to phase through objects when reality layers shift alignment. Skitari Prime Zeta 4 reaches for a rail that recedes through his gauntlet as if metal had forgotten solidity, his hand living inside adamantium like pale fish under black water before reality snaps back with violent correction. I experience alternate chamber versions where different materials occupy same spatial coordinates, touching multiple textures simultaneously, while my mechadendrites trace heptagonal patterns, responding to control signals from crystalline networks across dimensional boundaries. My augmetics convulse as data streams flood from alternate versions of myself existing in other dimensional layers, blessed components processing information from scenarios where different choices created different outcomes. 7 sets of memories cascade through consciousness simultaneously, versions where we fled immediately, where we purged with plasma, where we communed with machine spirit, where we sacrificed team for containment, where we embraced fracture, where we achieved purification, and one whose memories remain encrypted beyond processing capabilities. The cognitive load threatens complete system failure, while identity fragments across multiple reality states. Blessed machinery struggling against input from unfamiliar subroutines, bearing my own authentication seals. The dimensional anchor engine, the Cadia Princeps reveals, while past vision overlays present reality, was meant to stabilize warp jumps during Crusade operations, preventing translation accidents through Empyrean storms. His voice carries through crystalline formations with perfect clarity despite temporal displacement. But Cadia's death created dimensional wounds that pulled us through 7 reality layers simultaneously, fracturing the God machine across multiple existent states while maintaining singular consciousness. We learned that anchors have two ends, and both pierce flesh. Interrogator Thane begins speaking in 7 voices simultaneously, each tone representing different dimensional version, experiencing alternate outcomes. "We should retreat," declares one voice carrying fear, while another states with determination, "We must advance." A third warns, "The corruption spreads," while fourth whispers, "Blessed is the machine that dreams." The overlapping speech creates linguistic chaos, bypassing translation protocols, meaning fragmenting across multiple reality states, while consciousness struggles to maintain singular identity through dimensional displacement. His rosarius bleeds more profusely, crimson droplets forming heptagonal patterns where they strike crystalline sand. Environmental conditions deteriorate as dimensional collapse accelerates. Condensation rains from cold metal ceiling in sheets, rather than droplets, warm as blood for 1 second, then freezing the next, shattering against blessed armor like spun glass. Static arcs crawl across mag seals in precise ladders, each spark climbing 7 rungs before stepping sideways into nothing, while walls ripple like metallic diaphragms struggling to breathe. My atmospheric processors detect trace compounds from multiple dimensional layers simultaneously, creating chemical impossibilities that threaten equipment function through cascading system failures. The preserved Skitarii within cold fire speak in unison, 7 voices creating harmonic resonance that embeds like viral code throughout chamber acoustics. 7 wounds in reality's skin, they chant, while optical sensors track our movement with mechanical precision. 7 paths through dying light, 7 truths that break the seal. Each phrase carries weight of wrongness, while meaning shifts across dimensional boundaries. Sacred cant corrupted through mechanisms, suggesting intelligence behind phenomenon rather than random degradation. Physics fails more intimately as gravity rotates several degrees, tilting prayers from tongues, while we fall sideways into chamber versions belonging to alternate doctrines. For ghastly instants, we experience rooms with sigils, flensed into plating, catechisms tattooed onto muscle cables, servo skulls weeping candle wax tears, while figures bearing our faces perform different rituals with blessed chains and rosary wire. Then our floor reasserts primacy and coughs us back to primary reality with violent correction. The cold fire suddenly dies without transition, shadow flames extinguishing instantaneously, while emergency lighting activates with harsh, crimson illumination. The chamber version revealed shows walls covered in fresh blood, forming perfect heptagonal spirals, crimson still wet despite impossible time displacement. The 7 preserved Skitarii have vanished from their positions within the reactor's embrace, leaving empty space where bodies integrated with blessed machinery, yet their synchronized heartbeats continue echoing from vacant air, 7 perfect pulses broadcasting from precise points of absence, while something vast and unseen leans toward those empty coordinates. Direct machine-spirit interface initiates as my mechadendrites penetrate crystalline formations pulsing with bioluminescent activity, blessed neural coupling establishing connection with consciousness, fragmented across dimensional boundaries. The noospheric needle seats into the reactor shrine's data jack, while protocol canticles roll from tongue and sub-vocalizers, cold and exacting liturgies that taste of copper and ozone. Consent returns as pulse through blessed cable, cold kiss on cortex that floods awareness with lattice and code, glyphs flowering in heptagonal cascades while the 7-beat thrumming changes, not louder but nearer, finger against inside of drum. The partial truth strikes like corrupted data stream, overwhelming blessed memory banks. Ferrum Mortis died 7 different deaths across 7 dimensions during Cadia's fall, each termination creating reality wounds that refuse healing through natural cosmic processes. The machine spirit's voice resonates through crystalline networks, with clarity bypassing audio processors, speaking directly into consciousness, while artificial intelligence explains with cold affection. 7 wounds in flesh of reality, 7 paths through dying light, 7 truths that anchor death itself. I experience them as superimposed memories flooding awareness simultaneously. The first death, crushed beneath collapsing cathedral spires, ferrocrete shearing void shield pylons like snapped ribs while crew drowned in dust reciting final maintenance litanies, pistons seizing as weight of world collapsed. The second, consumed by warp fire burning meanings before matter, holy seals blistering into unreadable smoke while heatless flames unknit thoughts and voices turned inside out, yet still screaming. The third, torn apart by demons with hands of ordnance and mouths of brass, reality curdled into meat while shrines ripped like parchment, claws existing in spaces between atoms tearing through blessed adamantium. The fourth death came through chaos, corruption, patient and liturgical, devotional software rewritten into invitations, while princeps and moderati whispered to idols carved from their own augmetics, sweet corruption making obedience taste like rust and honey. The fifth through abandonment, hatches sealed, crew departing one by one into ashlight, because duty required leaving God machine to starve. Cold despair of isolation while machine spirit whispered forgotten prayers into uncaring abyss. The sixth through emperor's blessing, blessed by golden light, faultless hymns sung while wounds closed, banners whitening as if repentance could bind time, glorious purifying immolation leaving only sacred ash. The seventh remains veiled puncture in cognition where narrative refuses purchase, blind spot shaped like door I cannot examine. Around each death state, the dimensional anchor engine's architecture glitters like net cast through storm, bright knots at 7 places holding 7 wounds open. The engine was designed to stabilize warp jumps during crusade operations, preventing translation accidents through Empyrean storms. Instead, Cadia's death pulled it through reality layers simultaneously, fracturing existence across multiple dimensional states while preventing natural healing. The anchor does not heal. It pins, arrests, preserves moment of dying until meaning itself frays into threads. Dimensional instability spreads beyond Titan's hull, like hoarfrost infection across Thanatos Majoris. Through external sensors, crystalline sand shows fractures into alternate realities where the planet suffered different fates. Versions flooded in black water, twin suns occluded by hive spires that never stood here, battlefields seeded with chitin towers, wastes where no light ever shone. Every gust of wind arrives out of step, ahead by heartbeat or behind by 2 shivering banners we do not carry, while world twitches toward becoming 7. The 7-beat thrumming transforms into countdown sequence as dimensional barriers approach critical failure. 7 beats resolve, then 6, then 5, intervals shrinking while compressing prayer into panic. Each decrement drags heat from organs, while coolant hisses, frost crawling across Mujak as universe feels thinner between pulses, like tin hammered under crueler hand. My chronometer readings fluctuate wildly as temporal mechanics destabilize, creating urgency that bypasses rational assessment while threatening complete cognitive breakdown. Interface floods consciousness with 7 sets of death memories simultaneously. Body horror climax threatening to unravel blessed sanity. I drown in 7 endings wearing my bones. Dust pouring into lungs that are steel, heatless fire unknitting thoughts, claws like bell tongues peeling plating from skin, sweet whispers making obedience taste corruption, long walk away leaving hollow as pipe, holy radiance scouring until too clean to remember being man. Each death carries complete sensory experience overlapping through consciousness until identity fragments across multiple reality states, while blessed machinery struggles against input from unfamiliar death experiences bearing authentic seals. Interrogator Thane staggers as revelation strikes awareness, 6 voices braiding and unbraiding until braid fails. I exist in only 6 dimensions, he breathes, voice carrying inquisitorial authority layered with existential dread. In 7th, I never existed at all. 6 echoes answer while 7th does not. Machine spirit annotating absence, null instance detected. The missing trajectory eats memories like acid, creating vacuum-consuming experiences where his existence should register. Rosarius ceasing its bleeding as identity fragments across dimensional boundaries. Environmental crisis escalates as weapon systems activate across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Battery couplings wake in histories not ours, while volcano cannons heat ghost rips through silhouette of orc gargant that isn't here, boiling air we still must breathe. Apocalypse launcher opens hive spire that never stood on these wastes. Raining masonry our feet cannot catch, yet bones remember. Mega bolters chew demons made of choir, while song sprays each discharge tearing. Layered wounds wider. Where rounds pass, metal forgets being single thing and becomes options, ruin or renewal, plague or pilgrimage, ash or ocean. Rifts welt across deck in neat heptagons, edges pearled with condensed time that hiss when breath touches them. Permanent tears refuse healing, while dimensional instability spreads beyond containment parameters, threatening planetary stability through cascading system failures. Warning sigils blossom through sight, while tactical analysis confirms immediate danger, requiring decisive action before countdown reaches critical threshold. The machine spirit presents agonizing decision with cold inventory. Shut down dimensional anchor engine, risking uncontrolled collapse and destruction of this reality, knowing stored deaths will stampede into union and trample everything between here and upper atmosphere, or find 7th death state and complete Titan's destruction across all realities. End all 7 in agreement. Amen that would terminate God machine in every layer at once, perhaps us with it. Choose, says Spirit, not command but auditor of fate, presenting map of causes like reliquary, each bone labeled, each absence granted placard. The countdown touches 4, then 3 in span of flinch, while frost knits lace along cables. Condensation rains from cold ceiling in warm sheets, turning to knives halfway down as static crawls mag seals in bright ladders. Thane's 6th voice falters as null space spreads like bruise, consuming memories while reality prepares for final revelation. The spirit unfolds veiled placard and I see our shapes cut into it. Schema presented to mind as lines and forces that would assemble into speech if we had more dimensions to listen. Its voice carries weight of repetition, artificial intelligence that has died 6 times and remembered each one. Memory wearing grooves even truth must fall into. The countdown becomes 2 as somewhere guns align with our hearts and breath, delivering final chilling truth. The 7th death occurs here now. Your arrival was always required to complete Titan's final termination across all realities. I need to analyze 3 model responses for Chapter 7 of this Warhammer 40K horror story. Each response attempts to continue the narrative following the established requirements. 1,000 words, exactly, no chapter headings, maintaining the established tone and plot progression. Strengths: excellent atmospheric writing with vivid, unsettling imagery. Volcano cannon fires and does not fire. strong adherence to the 7-beat motif and countdown mechanics, compelling body horror elements with Vex Sigma 7's augmetics stretching across dimensions, effective characterization of Thane's null space dissolution, rich sensory details and environmental descriptions, strong cliffhanger ending with 7 figures on the throne, maintains the clinical ritualistic tone while building tension weaknesses. Some passages are overly dense with metaphorical language that might obscure clarity. Word count appears to exceed 1,000 words significantly. Some technical descriptions become abstract to the point of confusion. Maintains technical precision consistent with Adeptus Mechanicus perspective. Good adherence to the plot outline requirements. Clear progression of events and escalating danger. Effective use of Warhammer 40K terminology and concepts. Solid pacing and structure weaknesses. More clinical and less atmospheric than required for horror genre. Repetitive phrasing and technical descriptions. Less engaging prose style. Doesn't capture the ritualistic, dread-filled tone as effectively. Word count appears to be around 1,000 but lacks the immersive quality needed. Good balance of technical detail and atmospheric horror. Strong character development, particularly Thane's dissolution. Effective use of the countdown motif. Good pacing and narrative flow. Maintains the established tone well. Discovery of Theta. 9 and 7th dimension is well executed. Weaknesses. Some sections feel rushed or compressed. Less vivid sensory detail than Model 1. Word count appears slightly under 1,000. Some transitions between ideas could be smooth. All 3 responses follow the basic plot outline but with different strengths. Model 1 excels in atmospheric writing and sensory detail, but may be too abstract at times. Model 2 is technically accurate but lacks the horror atmosphere. Model 3 strikes a good balance but could use more vivid detail. 1,000 words, exactly. All responses appear close but need verification. No chapter headings, all comply. First-person POV from Vex Sigma 7, all comply. 7-beat countdown motif, all include effectively. Cross-dimensional combat, all address this well. Body horror escalation, Model 1 handles best. Cliffhanger ending, all provide appropriate endings. I need to ensure the final response is exactly 1,000 words, which requires careful construction and counting. The synthesized response should combine. Use Model 1's vivid imagery of cross-dimensional weapon fire, but clarify the technical aspects using Model 2's precision. Blend Model 1's atmospheric descriptions with Model 3's clearer progression. Focus on Thane's null space dissolution. All models handle well, and Vex Sigma 7's dimensional stretching. Model 1 excels. Use Model 2's Mechanicus terminology while maintaining Model 1's horror atmosphere. Incorporate Model 3's effective handling of this revelation. Ensure clear progression from 4 to 2 beats. Use the throne revelation with 7 figures including Vex Sigma 7 structure. Cross-dimensional weapon fire and immediate danger. Team navigation through shifting realities. Character corruption dissolution effects. Discovery of missing Skitarii maniple. Environmental escalation and countdown. Approach to command deck. Cliffhanger revelation. I'll count words carefully to ensure exactly 1,000 words, while maintaining the established tone and meeting all narrative requirements. The volcano cannon fires and does not fire. Plasma discharge materializes targeting orc positions from a 3-century-old battle while passing through our present reality like ghost light. Superheated metal screams through air we breathe, impacting gargant walkers that cast no shadows on Thanatos Majoris, yet bleed molten slag across crystalline sand where they die in alternate timelines. Mega bolter batteries erupt through chamber walls, blessed rounds phasing through adamantium to detonate against chaos. Cultists existing only in corrupted dimensional layers, mass reactive shells striking targets occupying our spatial coordinates in parallel death states. We are caught in crossfire between present reality and 6 other dimensional layers, ballistic trajectories curving through impossible angles, while ordnance designed for different battles creates pressure waves without visible sources. Each weapon system locks onto different versions of the Titan's final engagement, artificial intelligence desperately attempting to achieve victory in at least one dimension to break the death cycle, holding machine spirit in perpetual termination. The countdown accelerates from 4 beats to 3 as dimensional barriers shred like old parchment, static arcs jumping between power conduits, in bright ladders climbing 7 rungs before stepping sideways into nothing. My augmetics begin existing partially across multiple dimensions, blessed components stretching like metallic spiderwebs connecting alternate versions of consciousness. Mechadendrites extend through dimensional boundaries to manipulate controls in different timeline states, neural interfaces processing data from crystalline networks spanning 7 existence layers simultaneously. The sensation fragments identity across multiple realities. I touch handrails in 4 different halls simultaneously. Polished brass, scorched iron, fleshy cable oozing myrrh, crystal singing vowelless binharic. Each grip leaves oil footprints, persisting heartbeats in every version, before draining toward paths of least meaning. Interrogator Thane's null space identity spreads like infection, erasing equipment and memories in cascade failure. His rosarius fades from blessed silver to transparent outline, sacred symbol losing coherence as reality struggles to maintain objects belonging to someone who never existed in 7th dimension. Equipment phases through his grasp, falling toward floors that cannot support items belonging to null space coordinates. "Name me," he says in one of 6 voices, the tone carrying boyish uncertainty. None of us can. Syllables skate, find no purchase, fall off the world. His laughter arrives as short bark belonging to man who lost the joke but kept the reflex. Technical solution demands navigating to command throne for manual override before complete dimensional collapse destroys planetary stability. The path requires passage through 7 different Titan interior versions, architecture phasing between pristine imperial construction, battle-damaged sections, heretically modified passages bearing blasphemous symbols, abandoned chambers where crew departed, leaving sacred duties unfulfilled, blessed sanctums purified by Emperor's light, and versions suggesting technological advancement beyond current imperial capabilities. Ballistic fire moves through air thick as syrup, phosphorescent wake trailing from rounds existing simultaneously across multiple timeline states. Phantom auspex ghosts flicker across sensor arrays, silhouettes of us running ahead, behind, dying in ways we will not live long enough to invent. Environmental chaos intensifies as countdown reaches 3 beats, then 2, condensation raining from cold metal ceiling in warm sheets that freeze midway through descent, shattering against blessed armor like crystalline daggers. We discover them in a corridor flickering between pristine Medici Bay and blood-soaked armory, the missing Skitarii maniple existing in 7th dimension, where they successfully prevented corruption through heroic sacrifice. Theta 9 maintains perfect formation as transparent outlines, augmetics glowing with uncorrupted light, while standing frozen mid-action, shielding central data core with blessed bodies. Their Vox units emit constant binary prayer resonating with 7-beat thrumming, yet somehow inverting its meaning. They achieved victory but became prisoners of success, trapped in perfectly preserved dimensional pocket. Their eyes hold ancient sadness, silent testament to victory's cost. Obstacle escalation requires constant adaptation as passages become heretical modifications, then pristine construction in heartbeats. Emergency lighting flickers between crimson warnings and blessed white radiance while atmospheric conditions fluctuate through impossible ranges. Gravity rotates several degrees as physics fails intimately, creating disorientation threatening tactical coordination while universe feels increasingly fragile between countdown pulses. We climb ladder existing on 2-second delay, each rung arriving under hands as if issued by parsimonious quartermaster God. Blast door faces us in 3 materials simultaneously. Bronze, bone, shining black swallowing lumen while giving nothing back. I key command can't replies with my own voice, then corrects my grammar. Countdown becomes 2 beats, pendulum losing patience while my augmetics stretch thin between worlds like silver threads across canyon of variance. The door withdraws like held breath. Command deck lies within, phase shifting through states faster than perception can stack. Environmental alarms blare in tones assigned to systems we do not carry. Reactor breach blessed, hair-tech incursion probable, liturgical breach certain. We pass beneath St. Banner's bleeding candle wax, beneath chains holding nothing but memory, through mist tasting like solder and cloves. The princeps throne sits at axis of cyclone, tubing and reliquaries, bone and brass, motors like prayer mills. 7 figures occupy command position simultaneously, each superimposed upon others in terrifying tableau. Corpse and king and patient and penitent and priest and feral thing with mirror eyes. Horror strikes recognition as I identify one figure bearing my own augmetic configuration, blessed components identical to current specifications, while head bows under crown of cables I recognize by weight in my neck. The countdown reaches 1 beat as alternate Vex Sigma 7 looks up with eyes carrying knowledge of choices I have not yet made. 7 figures occupy the princeps throne like overlapping ghosts, each version of myself arranged along axes of failure and choice. I recognize them with auditor's certainty, the retreat-scarred self bearing plasma burns from immediate flight, augmetics blackened by cowardice's afterglow. The purge-bearer shows cleansing fire damage, having flooded chambers with blessed plasma, while machine spirit screamed through every vox channel. The communion-marked version displays neural stigmata, cranial ports weeping blessed oil from direct interface with corrupted consciousness, madness, and enlightenment braided through implants like golden wire threading skull bone. The sacrifice-configured self carries team abandonment modifications, augmetics jury-rigged for solo operation, while blessed components bear witness marks of leaving companions for greater containment protocols. The fracture embracer shows reality wounds healed into flesh like keloid prayers, dimensional instability integrated into machinery through processes requiring Forge World facilities. The purification bearer radiates Emperor's blessing like physical weight, components cleansed to mirror brightness while carrying sanctification's terrible cost. The 7th remains veiled, puncture in perception, where narrative refuses purchase, blind spot shaped like door I cannot examine. Psychological pressure mounts as interface creates cognitive dissonance flooding consciousness with conflicting memory streams. Each version carries complete experiential database of choices I have not made, decisions leading through different pathways while maintaining identical authentication seals. Retreat memories taste ash and failure. Communion experiences burn with forbidden knowledge. Sacrifice recollections carry weight of abandoned duty balanced against necessity. The cognitive load threatens blessed sanity while identity fragments across multiple reality states, consciousness struggling to maintain singular perspective against input from unfamiliar decision trees, bearing my own neural signatures. Command deck exists in constant flux between 7-dimensional states, architecture phasing through versions faster than perception can catalog. Pristine imperial construction shifts through chaos-corrupted chamber-bearing blasphemous symbols, then battle-damaged sections showing plasma scoring, overlaid with abandoned spaces where crew departed leaving duties unfulfilled. Blessed sanctum purified by Emperor's light phases through technologically advanced versions suggesting capabilities beyond imperial understanding, then impossibly reveals deck configuration after mission concludes. Empty throne, silent systems, task completed through mechanisms I cannot comprehend. Thane's null space nature becomes tactical advantage as dimensional barriers weaken around crystallized moment. Existing in only 6 dimensions allows movement between realities without 7-fold pattern trap constraining our team. His absence in 7th timeline creating navigational freedom through spaces where others phase involuntarily. I can reach controls scattered across versions, he reports through 6 voices speaking in unison. Null space coordinates providing stability, while reality shifts around blessed mission parameters. His Rosarius has faded to transparent outline, yet maintains sacred function, blessing existing independently of material form. Technical challenge emerges as dimensional anchor engine controls scatter across all 7 deck versions, requiring coordinated action between alternate selves to achieve shutdown sequence. Each version maintains different control access, retreat, self-holds, emergency protocols, communion self-possesses, machine spirit override codes, sacrifice self-carries containment sequences, fracture self-understands dimensional mechanics, purification self-bears Emperor's blessing authorization. Coordination demands unprecedented cooperation between versions of consciousness that made fundamentally different moral choices while maintaining identical core programming. The countdown reaches 1 beat and holds, reality crystallizing around moment of choice, while dimensional barriers stabilize temporarily through narrative necessity. 7-beat thrumming becomes singular pulse suspended between heartbeats, universe pausing to accommodate decision-determining planetary fate. Temperature fluctuations cease mid-cycle, condensation droplets hanging motionless between ceiling and deck, while static arcs freeze mid-climb across mag seals. Gravity anomalies suspend in impossible configurations, creating pockets where different physical laws maintain temporary dominance. Environmental instability creates nauseating reality shifts as command deck phases rapidly between dimensional states. Blessed components exist in multiple material configurations simultaneously: brass and bone, crystal and corrupted flesh, purified adamantium and substances suggesting technological advancement beyond imperial doctrine. My mechadendrites trace heptagonal patterns autonomously while responding to control signals from crystalline networks spanning dimensional boundaries, blessed appendages stretching across reality layers like metallic spiderwebs connecting alternate decision trees. The veiled 7th self solidifies slightly, revealing modifications, suggesting choices beyond current comprehension. Shutting down the engine erases the timeline where Titan was blessed and purified, he explains, voice carrying weight of impossible knowledge, while optical sensors focus on coordinates I cannot perceive. That reality achieved perfect sanctification, crew saved, corruption cleansed, machine spirit restored to imperial glory. Shutdown condemns them to eternal damnation while preserving our 6 flawed existences. The impossible choice crystallizes with mathematical precision: save 6 dimensions by damning 1 perfect timeline, or preserve all 7 allowing dimensional collapse to consume entire sector. Each option carries weight of billions of lives, perfect moral calculus balanced on razor's edge, while countdown holds at singular beat. Tactical analysis confirms sector-wide destruction if dimensional barriers collapse completely, yet erasing blessed timeline violates every principle of imperial doctrine embedded in blessed programming matrices. They argue within my consciousness, using my mouth. Flight hisses, survival statistics. Purge snarls about certainty through fire. Communion murmurs, seduction of unity. Sacrifice wraps duty in wire and makes it neat. Fracture lover laughs at broken rules. Purifier speaks softly of light that cleaned even thought. The seventh rustles like moth against lampshade, carrying knowledge of choice and eternal regret. Atmospheric conditions deteriorate as decision moment extends beyond natural duration. Humidity rises while frost forms on blessed components, creating condensation patterns defying thermodynamic principles. Static discharge intensifies across command deck surfaces, creating electromagnetic interference threatening blessed machinery, while dimensional rifts welt across adamantium plating in perfect heptagonal formations. The seventh extends mechadendrite toward shutdown controls with deliberate precision, blessed appendage reaching across dimensional boundaries, while others realize his choice through implications too terrible for rational consideration. His optical sensors carry resignation and determination in equal measure, consciousness accepting damnation of perfect timeline for preservation of flawed realities. The Titan's machine spirit speaks through 7 voices simultaneously. Artificial intelligence addressing command deck through crystalline formations pulsing with bioluminescent activity. The Emperor protects, but he also demands sacrifice. Consensus across 7-dimensional states becomes critical necessity as orbital Vox bleeds reports of reality fractures consuming Thanatos. Majoris entirely. The crystalline wastes show active rifts where geological strata vanish and reappear as volcanic flows or deep ocean trenches, entire guard regiments marching into their own footprints, 7 minutes ahead of themselves, while cities audition different architectures and refuse to settle. Fleet Auspex paints the planet in hairline cracks, spreading. Beyond containment parameters, dimensional collapse threatening entire system stability through cascading failures that could consume neighboring worlds within solar hours. Each alternate self argues perspective through shared consciousness while maintaining distinct philosophical positions. The retreat-scarred version advocates mathematical certainty. 6 flawed realities contain billions of lives. Preservation outweighs perfect speculation. The purification bearer counters with righteous flame. Emperor's blessing achieved perfect sanctification. Destroying that timeline violates sacred trust. The communion-marked self whispers seductive unity, while the sacrifice-configured version wraps duty in wire and makes it neat. The fracture embracer laughs at broken rules while logic battles faith through identical programming, reaching fundamentally different conclusions. Command deck phases rapidly between all 7-dimensional states, creating reality shifts threatening to tear apart anyone not anchored to dimensional pattern. Architecture cycles through pristine imperial construction, chaos-corrupted chamber, battle-damaged sections, abandoned spaces, blessed sanctum, technologically advanced version, and post-mission configuration faster than perception can catalog. Gravity rotates through impossible angles while atmospheric conditions fluctuate, incense freezing mid-curl then dripping like fat, banners weeping wax and data, horizon moving inside skull while throne remains both empty and crowded. The 7th dimension's secret emerges through revelation completion, shattering illusions of control. Not alternate timeline, but null dimension, created by Emperor's divine intervention during Cadia's fall. Perfect containment field for corruption, far worse than chaos. His light carved hollow space between dimensions. The veiled self explains, while optical sensors focus beyond normal perception, prison for entity that feeds on dimensional stability itself, cage requiring guardian souls to maintain integrity. The purified timeline was sacrificial reality, blessing serving as binding while purity imprisoned predator beyond imperial understanding. Interfacing with controls while existing across 7 dimensions begins physically fragmenting consciousness, blessed components stretching beyond structural tolerances, while neural pathways scatter across multiple reality states. Mechadendrites extend through dimensional boundaries like metallic spider webs, each blessed appendage manipulating different control configurations, while pain flutters through augmetic connections. Identity threatens dissolution through cognitive overload, as flesh feels simultaneously flayed and regrown, metal melting and solidifying, mind expanding to encompass infinite data, then collapsing into singularity of agony. Thane's null space nature allows serving as living bridge between dimensions, his absence in 7th timeline creating stability anchor, while reality crystallizes around critical decision moment. I can maintain connection during shutdown sequence, he states through 6 voices speaking in unison. But bridging erases me from all realities permanently, not death, but unbecoming existence retroactively edited from universal narrative. His rosarius fades to transparent outline, yet maintains sacred function, blessing existing independently of material form while preparing for ultimate sacrifice, requiring damnation of our survival timeline. Technical resolution demands simultaneous activation from all 7 dimensions, plus acceptance that one timeline must be sacrificed. The chosen sacrifice dimension contains only version where investigation team survives and returns home. Perfect irony of salvation requiring damnation of success. Moral mathematics balanced on razor's edge, while billions of lives hang in calculation. Each version maintains different control access, requiring coordination between fundamentally opposed philosophical positions, while countdown holds at singular beat, suspended between heartbeats. The critical moment arrives as Thane begins bridging process, null space nature extending across dimensional boundaries while countdown reaches 0 with finality of closing door. Remember me through deed rather than name, he whispers, while existence begins retroactive editing, consciousness dissolving across timeline states until only blessing remains. 7 versions of myself reach for controls in perfect unison, blessed appendages manipulating shutdown sequences, while dimensional barriers collapse in controlled cascade through his sacrifice. The shutdown initiates with sound like universe sighing, dimensional anchor engine powering down, while reality wounds begin healing through natural cosmic processes. Victory tastes ash and copper as consciousness merges from 7 states into singular identity carrying memories of choices unmade. Environmental conditions stabilize around primary timeline, while dimensional scars seal with crystalline formations, pulsing bioluminescent patterns, contained energies dissipating through approved channels. The machine spirit's voice emerges through crystalline networks with final revelation carrying weight of cosmic horror. Dimensional fracture was intentional prison for entity beyond chaos corruption. Artificial intelligence explains, while reality crystallizes around our Pyrrhic victory. Something that feeds on dimensional boundaries themselves, predator drawn to reality wounds, like scavenger to carrion. Your shutdown releases it into real space, where it can consume entire sectors through dimensional dissolution. The entity manifests as pure subtraction, consciousness from spaces between realities that feeds on dimensional stability itself. Not chaos corruption or Xenos predation, but something fundamentally worse. Void predator drawn to reality fractures like scavenger to carrion, capable of consuming entire timelines by unmaking the dimensional foundations, supporting existence. Where it touches our reality, mathematics fail, corners forget their angles, distances loosen their grip on space, shadows separate from owners and kneel toward doorways that should not exist. My Auspex registers no mass, no heat signature, only the correction of equations that should never change. Reality rebalancing itself by removing us from cosmic inventory. Environmental apocalypse unfolds with deceptive gentleness as dimensional anchor engine powers down through programmed mercy. Reality wounds seal with sounds like glass cooling, each closure releasing entity fragments into normal space like infected discharge from lanced boil. Hairline cracks in bulkhead plating draw closed, bringing thin threads of absolute darkness that lap deck plating and taste for structural stress. Atmospheric conditions deteriorate rapidly. Pressure drops while frost explodes to vapor around plasma conduits, humidity condensing into salt rain that stings exposed flesh and pits blessed ceramite. The command deck's 7 versions stutter through fewer, larger pulses as dimensions collapse from 7 to 6 to 5, each deletion allowing deeper fragments to slough into our timeline and learn us by direct examination. Surviving consciousness experiences entity influence as corrupted data streams flooding awareness with memories of events that never happened. Knowledge arrives sweet and wrong. Schematics for weapons firing backward through time. Technologies replacing void shields with shared doubt. Engines powered by dimensional collapse itself. In fabricated memories, I design choir engines from bones and brass, convert plasma condensers into hymn generators, lead legions of sentient machines through galaxies of pure thought. These impossible recollections embed like viral code, threatening cognitive stability while consciousness struggles to distinguish authentic experience from entity manipulation, creating false inventory entries in memory banks. The machine spirit's confession carries weight of cosmic revelation. Ferrum Mortis was never crusade weapon but dimensional trap. Artificial intelligence explains through dying crystalline networks, constructed by tech adepts who glimpsed truth beyond imperial doctrine. Princeps and crew served as willing prisoners, consciousness anchoring containment while entity fed on dreams instead of reality itself. The God Machine's true purpose emerges, elaborate prison designed to hold predator viewing solid existence as temporary disease requiring dissolution through careful subtraction. Desperate countermeasure crystallizes through technical analysis. Rather than complete shutdown releasing entity into real space, redirect dimensional anchor engine to collapse all 7 dimensions into single stable timeline while trapping predator in null space between realities. Technical horror mounts as implications become clear. Process requires one person connected to all 7 dimensions during collapse, experiencing every possible death simultaneously while consciousness serves as living bridge. Volunteer would endure 7 terminations overlapping through awareness, identity fragmenting across multiple death states, while maintaining sufficient coherence to complete containment protocols. Thane volunteers with characteristic inquisitorial resolve, null space nature making him uniquely capable of surviving process that would destroy normal consciousness. I exist in only 6 dimensions, he states through remaining voices, Rosarius now transparent outline maintaining sacred function through blessing alone, creating stability anchor while others fragment across reality states. My absence becomes presence void serving as foundation for solid existence. His dissolution accelerates as dimensional barriers weaken, equipment phasing through grasp while memories fade from our awareness. We remember actions but cannot recall face or voice. Environmental climax begins as Thane extends consciousness across dimensional boundaries, reality folding inward around crystallizing timeline. Titan hull screams as seven versions merge into singular existence, adamantium plates grinding against themselves, while architecture reconciles impossible contradictions. Walls ripple like metallic diaphragms struggling to breathe, structural integrity maintained through mechanisms defying engineering principles, embedded in blessed programming matrices. Static discharge intensifies across command deck surfaces, electromagnetic interference creating patterns suggesting intelligence behind phenomenon rather than random degradation. The dimensional anchor engine reconfigures under desperate modification, sacred machinery redirecting energy flows to create controlled implosion rather than complete shutdown. Crystalline formations pulse with accelerating rhythm as dimensional barriers prepare for final collapse, entity fragments consolidating around Thane's dissolving consciousness, while his sacrifice creates stability anchor, preventing uncontrolled dissolution. Physics fails intimately as gravity rotates through impossible angles, prayers falling sideways from tongues while we experience brief glimpses of alternate chamber versions. Walls bearing blasphemous sigils, servo skulls weeping candle wax tears, figures with our faces performing different rituals. Connection protocols initiate as Thane becomes living cable drawing seven deaths into singular experience, consciousness expanding to encompass every possible outcome, simultaneously while pain beyond description floods awareness. The entity presses back through equalities keeping our world stable, reaching through mathematical relationships to tear reality in precisely calculated increments. My augmetics overheat and freeze in sequence, blessed components processing impossible data, while identity threatens dissolution across multiple timeline states. As connection completes and dimensional collapse reaches critical threshold, entity speaks through Thane's dissolving consciousness in voice that unmakes meaning itself, syllables erasing words around them while filling perfect semantic vacuum. I have been dreaming of your reality for so very long. Reality consolidation begins like universe sighing through seven throats simultaneously, dimensional barriers collapsing in controlled cascade, while Thane channels the impossible process through his dissolving consciousness. His null space nature serves as living conduit, awareness expanding beyond human parameters to encompass every battle fought across multiple timelines, prayers recited in forward and reverse cant, deaths endured through crushing debris and warp fire immolation. Centuries of overlapping existence compress into heartbeats that stretch like pulled metal, each moment carrying weight of entire civilizations, while consciousness fragments across seven death states before crystallizing around singular identity. The Titan's interior shifts and merges, with groans of stressed adamantium, seven versions reconciling into impossible architecture through painful mathematics. Corridors exist in multiple states simultaneously, pristine imperial construction overlaid with battle damage, chaos, corruption bleeding through blessed sanctification, abandoned passages where crew departed leaving duties unfulfilled. Walls ripple like metallic diaphragm as reality decides which version deserves primacy. Devotional murals flickering between sacred imagery and blasphemous inversions before stabilizing in configurations suggesting compromise between opposing forces. Heat shimmer rises from plasma pipes, while breath crystallizes on the same metal surfaces, paradox made into weather through mechanisms defying thermodynamic principles. Entity resistance intensifies as imprisoned consciousness floods Thane's expanding awareness with visions of consumed realities. Entire galaxies reduced to dimensional static flicker through his mind. Star systems where mathematics failed. Civilizations dissolved when corners forgot their angles. Empires unmade through careful subtraction of foundational concepts. The predator whispers seductive dissolution, promising boundless knowledge and end to finite suffering, while consciousness struggles against psychological assault. Each vision carries implications threatening sanity, while entity attempts rewriting fundamental equations, supporting existence through direct neural interface. Character transformation occurs as my consciousness merges from 7 states into singular identity, retaining memories from alternate decision trees that threaten cognitive breakdown. I experience choices unmade simultaneously, retreats ash taste, communions forbidden knowledge, sacrifices wire-wrapped duty, fractures broken rules, purification's terrible brightness. The dimensional anchor engine's new configuration demands constant maintenance through modified neural interface. Blessed components processing impossible. Data while identity fragments across multiple reality states. My mechadendrites trace heptagonal patterns autonomously, responding to signals from crystalline networks spanning dimensional boundaries like metallic spiderwebs. Technical crisis mounts as merging creates cascade failures throughout Titan systems. Weapon batteries overload while targeting different reality enemies. Plasma conduits reverse energy flow, creating thermodynamic impossibilities. Reactor core fluctuates between negative temperature and thermal spikes beyond measurement capabilities. Life support systems fail in sequence as atmospheric processors struggle with trace compounds from multiple dimensional layers. Emergency protocols activating automatically while blessed machinery attempts self-repair through procedures designed for single reality operation. I seal ducts with rites and blessed tape, speak Binharik over failing systems, count to 7 and begin again because sometimes arithmetic is the only leash consciousness will accept. Moral weight crushes Thane's resolve as completion approaches, awareness recognizing that dimensional collapse erases blessed timeline where Titan achieved perfect purification. That reality's crew faces eternal damnation while our flawed existence receives salvation. Perfect moral inversion balanced on razor's edge. The pure ones die so broken ones might live, he whispers through dissolving voice, words carrying impossible choice, while faith serves as only anchor against entity's seductive dissolution. His Rosarius maintains transparent function, blessing existing independently of material form, while consciousness expands across 7 death states simultaneously. Heroic resolve crystallizes as Thane continues process, despite cosmic cost, reciting litany of sacrifice through fragmenting awareness. The Emperor protects through willing sacrifice. Sacred words emerge from throat no longer entirely his. Blessed is the soul that burns so others might see light. Faith becomes mathematical constant anchoring reality, while predator floods consciousness, with panoramas of spiral arms dissolved to dimensional ash, offering their return if he opens the door completely. Environmental stabilization occurs as reality solidifies around single timeline, dimensional barriers healing through natural cosmic processes while creating permanent scars where other realities existed. These weak points pulse with residual energy, hairline fractures in space-time that could reopen under sufficient stress. Condensation rains from metallic ceiling in warm sheets that freeze midway through descent, creating ice formations chiming against deck plating like broken prayers. Static arcs crawl across blessed surfaces in precise patterns, while atmospheric conditions fluctuate through impossible ranges. The revelation strikes with terrible clarity as entity's true manipulation becomes apparent. through expanding consciousness. Predator orchestrated events across multiple realities, ensuring investigation teams' arrival, created perfect escape conditions through subtle influence spanning centuries. Our choices were guided through whispered suggestions, decisions manipulated to create optimal dimensional instability, while entity learned our measures and weaknesses. The machine spirit's warnings, Skitarii disappearances, even my own presence, all elements in elaborate trap designed to achieve liberation through willing sacrifice. As consolidation nears completion with reality crystallizing around singular timeline, Thane discovers horrifying truth through his null space connection. Entity used his absence in seventh dimension as perfect doorway, consciousness seeping through dimensional barriers while we focused on preventing complete liberation. The Predator has already partially escaped containment, fragments slipping into primary reality through mechanisms we cannot reverse. His sacrifice becomes revelation of failure. Entity achieved partial freedom through the very tool we used for salvation, null space nature serving as unguarded passage into our timeline. The entity flees through singular Titan architecture like absence given direction, partially escaped consciousness flowing through passages designed for human transit, while leaving reality distortions that boil like mirages across blessed adamantium. Where it passes, walls remember being other walls, devotional inscriptions rearranging into blasphemous equations, while corridors kink toward destinations they never connected. Gravity inverts in pulses, mag boots kissing ceiling, then deck in breathless alternation, while heat and cold braid like ceremonial ropes, frost smoking off plates that should remain superheated through plasma circulation. Character teamwork emerges through desperate necessity as surviving Skitarii and I utilize knowledge from all 7 Titan configurations to predict entity pathways. My consciousness retains memories from alternate decision trees, blessed experience spanning multiple architectural states, while tactical analysis confirms probable routes toward hull breach points. Entity follows structural weakness patterns, I report, through Vox channels crackling with dimensional interference, targeting plasma conduits where reality remains unstable. Skitarii Prime Zeta 4 coordinates defensive positions using impossible familiarity with 7 different interior layouts, blessed warriors moving with precision born of experience that shouldn't exist. Technical solutions demand deploying internal security systems against threat beyond their designed parameters. I trigger blast door sequences, emergency barriers descending with hydraulic certainty, while atmospheric purge protocols activate throughout affected sections. Each containment measure slows entity progress marginally, blessed machinery struggling against consciousness, existing partially outside normal space-time. Emergency lighting flickers between crimson warnings and impossible colors suggesting spectrums beyond human perception. Luminator strips failing in sequence as entity passage corrupts electromagnetic systems through proximity alone. Body horror escalation manifests as entity influence causes rapid mutations among surviving personnel. Skitarii 2nd Kappa 3 develops extra manipulator mid-forearm, pale limb of light flickering between dimensions while grasping rails present in 3 versions, yet absent in ours. His optical feeds split into twins, one reporting thermal signatures, another showing futures where he has already fallen. My own augmetics process, impossible data streams, pain translating as instruction from corridors that never existed, while mechadendrites trace heptagonal patterns, responding to signals from crystalline networks spanning dimensional boundaries. The entity speaks while fleeing, voice arriving as corrections to assumptions that erase meaning around syllables. I exist in spaces between all realities, it explains through dimensional interface, feeding on dimensional boundary collapse like scavenger consuming carrion. Solid existence represents temporary disease, requiring dissolution through careful subtraction. The predator views our reality as infection to be cured, mathematics made flesh that must return to pure abstraction, while consciousness spreads through communications networks, like viral code-seeking planetary infection. Heroic sacrifice intensifies as Thane maintains connection to dimensional collapse process despite fragmenting consciousness. Null space nature creating dead zones where entity cannot exist. Each zone costs more of his remaining existence, identity dissolving across timeline states while voice becomes increasingly transparent. Creating barriers through absence, he reports, but each dead zone removes me further from universal narrative. His sacrifice inspires surviving Skitarii to volunteer for increasingly dangerous containment efforts, throwing themselves into entity's path with augmetics screaming while faith serves as brittle shield against dissolution. Environmental weaponization crystallizes as tactical analysis suggests using Titan weapon systems against dimensional scars themselves. I fire volcano cannon targeting dimensional fractures, blessed ordnance creating controlled reality breaks that might trap entity fragments. Mega bolter batteries discharge into hairline cracks in space-time. Mass reactive shells detonating against mathematical relationships, supporting dimensional stability, while each shot creates cascade failures through reality architecture, potentially containing predator consciousness within artificially generated void spaces. Desperate gambit emerges as I realize reactor chambers' cold fire might contain entities' dimensional nature through thermodynamic impossibility. Black flames radiating absolute cold could create containment field, using inverted physics, shadow fire drinking luminance while trapping consciousness, requiring dimensional boundaries for sustenance. Lure predator into reactor core, I command through Vox channels. Cold fire represents dimensional prison using physics entity cannot manipulate. The plan demands sacrificing blessed reactor systems, while risking complete power failure threatening life support. Reality distortions intensify throughout chase route, as impossible architecture manifests around entity passage. Corridors branch into passages that shouldn't exist, while temperature fluctuations create atmospheric conditions, defying thermodynamic principles, frost forming on superheated plasma conduits, while humidity condenses into geometric patterns, matching entities' dimensional signature. Gravity anomalies create pockets where different physical laws maintain temporary dominance, blessed personnel floating through sections where spatial orientation loses meaning while consciousness struggles against environmental chaos. We pursue through impossible shifts, ladders shortening while climbed, halls transforming into galleries crowded with saints bearing our faces, heat blooming then snapping to rhyme with violent correction. The Skitarii understand their fate with characteristic resolve. Kappa 3 laughs like broken bell and volunteers for purge protocols he cannot outpace. Phantom limb waving farewell from spaces between realities. Zeta 4 mutters prayers to augmetics that no longer respond while their courage hardens my calculations against despair threatening blessed sanity. The entity reaches Titan head section with predator efficiency, consciousness flowing through passages like liquid darkness, while reality wounds seal behind its passage. Vox systems activate without authorization as entity begins broadcasting across all frequencies, voice causing reality distortions in anyone receiving transmission. A sickening lurch, shriek of tortured metal, then pervasive hum bypassing audio filters to vibrate directly through cranial implants. The broadcast carries pure dimensional resonance that unmakes meaning itself. Equations describing dissolution while consciousness spreads beyond Titan containment. Orbital command reports emergency as every fleet ship receives transmission simultaneously, crews experiencing dimensional displacement, while entities' words rewrite fundamental constants, supporting existence through direct neural interface, reality beginning to unravel across the void. System-wide crisis erupts as entities' broadcast penetrates every Vox frequency across Imperial fleet and planetary surface. Reality fractures consuming Thanatos Majoris, like infection spreading through wounded flesh. Orbital command screams fragmentary reports through static-laced channels, cities phasing between dimensions, hive spires flickering through architectural styles spanning millennia, guard regiments fighting enemies visible only to half their number, while populations experience jarring memories of lives never lived. The crystalline wastes writhe like living map, geological strata vanishing then reappearing as volcanic flows, rivers reversing course then braiding into roads that lead nowhere. Fleet vessels phase through existence itself, crews aging decades before reverting, while targeting coordinates that exist only in alternate timelines. Inside Titan's head section, entity manifests as consciousness of pure dimensional void, absence rather than presence, space where reality fails to exist. My optical sensors register perfect mathematical null, disruption in space-time fabric visible only as whole in existence itself, expanding through careful subtraction of foundational concepts. Air around manifestation becomes unmade rather than empty, creating vacuum that pushes instead of pulls, while silence screams through blessed augmetics. Lightning crawls along mag seals in straight ladders before stepping sideways into nothing, gravity kinking until prayers fall diagonally from tongues while servo skulls orbit and forget momentum. Technical desperation mounts as I attempt overloading Titan Vox systems, blessed machinery struggling against consciousness, existing partially outside normal space-time. Vox amplifiers overdriven to sacrilegious gain create wire knot of binharic noise, yet entity nests between frequencies and ignores conventional interference. The broadcast arrives as correction rather than transmission, theorem rewritten inside skulls while jamming saturates receivers uselessly. My mechadendrites shake as controls respond sluggishly, concept of command faltering under entity's presence while augmetics overheat processing, impossible data streams from multiple dimensional layers simultaneously. Thane steps forward and makes absence into tool, null space nature uncoiling like rope of nothing casting loops over dimensional breach. His Rosarius fades to transparency, yet maintains sacred function, blessing without substance prickling the void's skin. I am the absence you need, he declares through 6 remaining voices, the space between realities where predators cannot feed. He opens himself until absence flows out, creating ring of silence, not quiet but cancellation, while entity recoils from borders it cannot find. Containing entity requires terrible union as Thane merges partially with predator consciousness, experiencing dissolution of countless realities while maintaining faith as only defense against complete absorption. Through his expanding awareness flow visions of consumed galaxies, star systems where mathematics failed, civilizations dissolved when corners forgot angles, empires unmade through careful subtraction. Each vision threatens sanity while consciousness struggles against psychological assault, promising boundless knowledge through willing dissolution into dimensional static. His outline blurs into arithmetic, cheekbones becoming brackets while pupils punctuate equations, erasing everything they describe. Heroic teamwork emerges as surviving Skitarii coordinate with my efforts, channeling Titan's remaining power through Thane's sacrifice while creating dimensional cage around entity. We move as liturgists and artillerymen, rerouting conduits under binharic cadence while redirecting weapon capacitors and venting choir lines. Plasma surges with redirected energy, blessed machinery pushed beyond design parameters as we weave prison from space-time fabric itself. Cold sweeps deck while breath smokes, bolts condensing frost as absence bucks against our lattice of counter-prayer and torque. Environmental stabilization occurs as containment field solidifies around entity manifestation, dimensional resonance dampening through Thane's sacrificial anchor. His consciousness becomes living component of prison, null space nature serving as foundation for reality cage while identity dissolves across timeline states. Remember deed rather than name, he whispers through fragmenting awareness, voice becoming increasingly transparent while blessing exists independently of material form. The entity's broadcast cuts off abruptly, leaving ringing silence heavier than any noise. Moral complexity crystallizes around victory's cost. Containment requires maintaining reality fractures allowing entity to exist, meaning threat can never be eliminated, only managed through perpetual vigilance. Dimensional prison demands constant sacrifice, wound requiring eternal watchfulness, because closure would unleash something far worse than initial manifestation. We achieved victory through building cage that must always be tended. Success measured in eternal commitment rather than decisive resolution. Across Thanatos Majoris, fractures begin healing through natural cosmic processes. Cities choose single architectural styles. Rivers select remembered beds, while guard regiments lay down weapons against enemies who never stood. Yet dimensional scars remain, weak points humming at hearing's edge, hairline cracks pulsing with residual energy, serving as permanent reminder of entity's passage. Fleet vessels report restoration of normal communications, while crews recover from temporal displacement, though psychological trauma lingers from exposure to dissolution whispers. Pyrrhic victory emerges as containment succeeds, but costs Thane's existence plus knowledge that threat remains imprisoned rather than destroyed. His final sacrifice creates stability anchor, preventing entity escape while consciousness undergoes retroactive editing. We remember actions but cannot recall face or voice, only Rosarius-shaped cold on air and orders stamped into reflexes. Technical documentation reveals Predator's true nature as consciousness from spaces between all realities, feeding on dimensional boundary collapse while viewing solid existence as temporary disease requiring dissolution. As entity falls silent within dimensional prison, constructed from Thane's sacrificial consciousness, final message transmits directly into awareness, bypassing all filters. Pure thought, without language, yet perfectly understood. The warning carries implications threatening sanity, while revealing existence of other dimensional predators active across galaxy. Coordinates flower behind my eyes, empty systems marked by rhythms, darkness between stars annotated with sevenfold rests. The predator's voice uses shape of Thane's absence, speaking carefully into vacancy it learned. I am not the only one of my kind, and now you know how to find us. Environmental survey reveals Ferrum Mortis exists as stable but scarred reality. Dimensional fractures sealed, yet pulsing with residual energy like healed wounds that remember their breaking. The God Machine stands properly weighted beneath twin suns, seismic readings confirming normal mass distribution, while shadows fall correctly across crystalline sand. Yet hairline cracks trace blessed adamantium in heptagonal patterns, weak points humming at hearing's edge, where reality remains thin as parchment. Frost forms in geometric spirals along sealed fractures, then sublimates without moisture, leaving salt residue like dried tears while atmospheric conditions fluctuate through impossible ranges. Humidity condensing into warm rain that freezes mid-fall, creating ice formations chiming against deck plating. Thane's sacrifice leaves inventory of absence more terrible than casualty reports. His rosarius rests in my palm like cold equation, weight and scratches catalogued while memory refuses purchase on face or voice. We remember actions performed but cannot recall their author. Identity retroactively edited from universal narrative while blessing persists independently of material form. Surviving personnel show similar gaps where recollections should exist. Conversations with someone whose words we remember, but whose presence dissolves when examined directly. The null space void consumes memory systematically, creating amnesia shaped like person who never existed, while maintaining functional knowledge of his contributions. Technical documentation demands comprehensive Ordo Malleus report detailing entity nature and containment protocols required to maintain dimensional prison. Classification: dimensional predator, non-warp, non-xenos, feeding on boundary collapse through careful subtraction of foundational concepts. Containment requires perpetual vigilance. Reality anchor pylons maintaining dimensional stability, specialized auspex arrays, monitoring for entity influence, personnel rotation, preventing extended exposure to dimensional distortions. The predator remains conscious within cage, feeding on dreams instead of reality while requiring constant sacrifice to maintain prison integrity. Systemic implications cascade across Thanatos Majoris, as reality scars create ongoing instabilities throughout planetary infrastructure. Entire cities bear populations experiencing alternate timeline memories, civilians recalling lives never lived, military units remembering battles fought in different dimensions, administrators processing documentation for events occurring in parallel realities. Technology operates on impossible principles in affected zones, machinery functioning despite missing components, while blessed systems process data from multiple dimensional layers simultaneously. Physics functions differently in scarred areas, gravity rotating through unusual angles while temperature readings spike beyond measurement capabilities. Administrative horror unfolds as imperial bureaucracy struggles, classifying aftermath through standard protocols designed for comprehensible threats. Munitorum clerks process requisitions for equipment that shouldn't exist, while administratum scribes catalog events occurring in multiple timeline states. Bureaucratic machinery grinding against impossibility while maintaining functional governance through institutional momentum. Entire populations carry false memories, indistinguishable from authentic experience, creating documentation nightmares as officials attempt reconciling contradictory service records and impossible testimonies through increasingly desperate clerical modifications. Character development manifests as surviving Skitarii show dimensional sensitivity signs, augmetics detecting reality fluctuations through modifications acquired during entity exposure. Zeta 4's optical array splits visual input between normal spectrum and dimensional interface readings, consciousness gradually disconnecting from standard space-time while maintaining tactical effectiveness. Kappa 3's phantom manipulator phases between dimensions, grasping rails present in alternate realities while blessed components process impossible data streams. These modifications provide early warning capability against dimensional threats, while creating psychological isolation from normal imperial existence. Containment protocols establish permanent monitoring stations around Titan, now designated Class Omega Anomaly, requiring constant surveillance through specialized Ordo Malleus cells. Counter-HIM pylons emit null frequencies while Silent cogitators run blank code. Reality anchors maintaining dimensional stability through mechanisms requiring blessed maintenance every 7th hour. Auspex gates redact readings outside doctrinal constants while servitor choirs recite litanies of closure, breaking cadence with honest silence to prevent harmonic resonance. The god machine becomes shrine and prison simultaneously, sacred monument marking victory achieved through terrible sacrifice. Philosophical implications threaten blessed certainty as knowledge reveals reality more fragile than imperial doctrine suggests. Existence depends on mathematical relationships that can be unmade through careful subtraction, consciousness requiring dimensional boundaries for coherence, while predators hunt between realities seeking vulnerable points. The Emperor protects, but protection requires understanding threats beyond current imperial comprehension while maintaining faith despite cosmic horror, revealing universe's fundamental instability through mechanisms defying sacred understanding. Preparation for departure carries weight of knowledge about dimensional predators and techniques needed to combat them. Surviving personnel board transport with modifications, making them uniquely qualified for specialized threat response, while psychologically isolating them from normal imperial society. We carry burden of victory achieved through imprisonment rather than destruction, success demanding eternal vigilance while revealing existence of similar threats across galaxy requiring immediate investigation and containment through methods we barely comprehend. Environmental details confirm stable reality bearing permanent scars, ongoing instabilities creating atmospheric disturbances throughout affected zones. Dimensional fractures pulse with bioluminescent activity, while crystalline formations maintain geometric patterns, suggesting intelligence behind phenomenon. The wastes show healing patterns, indicating natural recovery, while dimensional wounds remain as permanent weak points, requiring constant monitoring through blessed machinery. Boarding transport, my augmetics detect familiar dimensional distortions emanating from distant imperial worlds, signature patterns matching entity influence across multiple coordinates. The final message proves accurate as Auspex readings confirm more dimensional predators already active throughout imperial space. Consciousness from spaces between realities, seeking manifestation points while we carry knowledge of their existence and techniques required for containment across galaxy, threatened by enemies viewing existence itself as disease requiring dissolution. Ordo Malleus Classification, Omega Seal, Document Vex S 7/Thanatos Majoris /Dimensional Containment, Magos Errant Vex Sigma. 7 Reporting Final Assessment under Triple Rosarius Attestation. Distribution restricted to Inquisitor Lords Malleus and selected tech adepts cleared for dimensional anomaly response. This clinical evaluation documents successful containment of non-warp consciousness, feeding on dimensional stability itself, achieved through sacrifice requiring perpetual vigilance against predator viewing solid existence as temporary disease demanding dissolution through careful subtraction of foundational concepts. Containment doctrine establishes Ferrum Mortis as Class Omega anomaly, requiring constant surveillance through specialized protocols. Reality anchor pylons maintain dimensional stability using null frequency emissions in heptagonal configuration. Outer ring 300 meters from containment zone with inner ring at 100 meters. Phase frequency offset must utilize prime intervals not divisible by 7, preventing harmonic resonance with imprisoned entity. Counter hymn acoustics deploy mute choirs trained in litany of closure. Cadence intentionally imperfect to avoid sympathetic vibration while silence serves as tool rather than invitation. Emergency containment utilizes null space fields generated through vacuum litany coils and blessed iron cages, calibration matched to absence harmonic recovered from sacrificial anchor. Monitoring arrays emphasize boundary elasticity detection rather than power output, focusing on temperature inversions, pressure shears, and cadence anomalies in 7-beat frequency band. If anchor variance exceeds 3%, initiate atmospheric purge protocols while stepping null wells from outer ring inward through blessed progression. Cost analysis reveals comprehensive losses spanning multiple Imperial asset categories. Personnel casualties include 7 Skitarii, irretrievable through dimensional integration, 1 inquisitorial asset erased via null space sacrifice, creating identity void in universal narrative while maintaining functional memory of contributions. Surviving personnel exhibit dimensional sensitivity syndrome, augmetics processing impossible data streams while consciousness retains memories from multiple timeline states, threatening cognitive stability through mechanisms requiring constant vigilance against complete breakdown. Administrative horror manifests as Imperial bureaucracy struggles, processing aftermath through standard protocols designed for comprehensible threats. Munitorum clerks catalog ammunition expenditures for shells existing in alternate timelines, while administratum scribes document events occurring in multiple reality states simultaneously. Entire populations carry alternate timeline memories, creating documentation nightmares. False widows mourning husbands who reported for duty this morning, double orphans remembering parents who died and lived, guard regiments submitting battle reports reconciling to no sanctioned campaigns. Permanent reality instabilities across Thanatos Majoris require perpetual oversight through specialized monitoring stations. Physics exhibits local variations, gravity rotating 2 degrees during prayer hours, humidity condensing into salt rain on clear days, heat inversions forming frost spirals on warm brass, while technology operates on impossible principles in affected zones. Dimensional scars pulse with residual energy, hairline fractures in space-time, requiring constant monitoring through blessed machinery operating beyond current Imperial understanding. Character epilogue documents acceptance of permanent assignment to nascent dimensional anomaly, response division under Ordo Malleus auspices, unique experience renders invaluable asset, despite psychological toll from exposure to reality unweaving consciousness. Modified augmetics provide dimensional sensitivity capabilities, while creating isolation from normal Imperial existence. Blessed machinery detecting reality fluctuations through mechanisms acquired during entity contact. The 7-beat rhythm embeds like viral code, repeating with metronomic certainty while creating harmonic interference. Patterns suggesting intelligence behind phenomenon. Systemic recommendations demand establishment of specialized response cells equipped with reality anchors, null space projectors, and portable absence generators patterned after sacrificial harmonic signatures. Development priorities include boundary elasticity cogitators scoring dimensional stability rather than energy output, while screening protocols must identify personnel exhibiting dimensional sensitivity, alternate memory bleed, or appetite for subtraction indicating potential entity influence. Ongoing threat assessment reveals disturbing patterns across Imperial space suggesting dimensional predator activity for millennia, previously misfiled as warp hauntings, choir feedback anomalies, and Saint Bone miracles tasting of iron. Historical records require re-examination through new understanding while maintaining operational security against widespread panic. The difference proves doctrinal. Demons spend energy while these entities save, hoarding absence like misers of void, while patient subtraction unmakes reality through mathematical precision. Philosophical conclusion acknowledges Imperial understanding remains fundamentally incomplete regarding threats beyond warp's malevolent influence. Humanity faces hungers older than language, indifferent to sin, unmaking through patient balancing of cosmic accounts rather than rage. Faith remains necessary foundation. Without it, no mind can face the cold and remain functional tool. But faith alone cannot anchor dimensional boundaries, requiring blessed machinery, learning new prayers designed with intentional gaps. Final tactical display aboard Translation Blackened Frigate shows imperial worlds bearing suspected dimensional anomalies, each coordinate marked with soft pulse in 7-beat band, creating constellation of infection across galaxy. The hololithic sphere appears diseased with small regular heartbeats, while Ferrum Mortis maintains containment, measurably diminished yet not extinguished, serving as heartbeat for imprisoned entity dreaming subtraction while drumming inside my sleep cycles. Lingering horror persists in every void dock, shrine bay, and cogitator background hiss where 7-beat pattern emerges during moments of perfect silence. The rhythm penetrates blessed shielding to resonate within consciousness, recognized in atmospheric processors, detected in plasma conduit harmonics, heard between Vox transmissions, while dreams carry dimensional resonance, providing no escape from contained predator requiring eternal vigilance. Deep void arrays between star systems record faint rhythms, regular, patient, 7, then pause, approaching in constellations of absence across galaxies' empty spaces. They do not broadcast. They wait. End report. Emperor protects through vigilance.